Wizards of the Coast has decided that being a Planeswalker just isn't enough for Planeswalkers, so now they've decided they want to be enchantments too. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, and welcome to my video discussion regarding how Planeswalkers are becoming enchantments. Interestingly enough, I had theorized that this would occur. Back when we were all speculating about what was going to happen with War of the Sparks, I came along and said that I figured that they were going to make half of the Planeswalkers uncommon. I was slightly wrong in that regard. Apparently, instead of 18 of the Planeswalkers being uncommon, 20 of them are. So it's a little more than half, but close enough for me to feel vindicated nonetheless. I also said that I expected that they would do two different things with the uncommon Planeswalkers. Now, we haven't had enough spoiled yet to know whether I'm right about both sides of the coin, but what I said was I expected to see Planeswalkers with one loyalty ability. Either they only travel upwards in loyalty or only travel downwards in loyalty. Now, we're going to take a look at a particular spoiler for an uncommon Planeswalker from War of the Spark, and then I'm going to explain to you how they're basically enchantments at this point. So we're going to be looking at Braska, Swarm's Eminence. This is a green-black Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. Interesting to note, it's hybrid mana. So you can play this in either a green deck, a black deck, or a green-black deck, which I really like. The abilities of the card are as follows. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player or Planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. And it has a -2 loyalty ability, so it travels downwards only with no capability of going upwards on its own. There are obviously other cards that exist in the game that can increase Planeswalkers' loyalty. The new Ajani is a good example of that. We'll talk about him at a further point. But anyways, there are other ways outside of this card to grow the number of counters on it, but in a void all by itself, it cannot increase its own loyalty. So it can only travel downwards. So its -2 ability is create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals damage to a Planeswalker, destroy that Planeswalker. And the artwork shows Braska looking pretty good here, actually. I genuinely enjoy the way that she's set against the backdrop of Ravnica there. You can see the spires all in the background. She's just got kind of a lovely feel. In all honesty, the previous Vraska Golgari Queen, she does not look that good in that artwork. I'm not a big fan of it. But in this one, she looks a lot better. She looks very regal. I enjoy it. Now, when you look at this card, it actually feels very much like an enchantment that can obviously be attacked, unlike other enchantments. It has the static effect, the static ability that ties in to the minus. Basically, when you make these creatures with the minus, they get the benefit of using her ability of whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player or Planeswalker, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Now, because of its limited nature, normally when you have Planeswalkers, you'll have an increasing loyalty ability, a decreasing loyal ability, and a huge decreasing loyalty ability that is their ultimate, that gives like an emblem. Now, what they've done with War of the Spark is they've staggered it so that only the mythic Planeswalkers have all 3. Basically, it goes 3 loyalty abilities for a mythic Planeswalker, 2 for a rare Planeswalker, 1 for an uncommon Planeswalker. And we will see going forward whether we're going to see any that like just move upwards, because the control on that is that players can attack it directly. I expect if they do make one where the loyalty goes upwards, it'll be a pretty weak effect. But I do like the synergy, and I do like the fact that now every Planeswalker has a static inborn ability aside from the loyalty. That is something, honestly, I didn't predict. I predicted that they would make cards like this where it would be like, okay, make a creature or something along those lines, reduce the loyalty. But I did not see that they would include the static ability. But when it comes to cards like this, now, she can't actually use up all of her loyalty. You can't go -2, -2, -2, because she only has 5 loyalty. So without a way to increase it, you're only going to get to use her twice for that ability, and then she's just going to sit there with 1 loyalty on her, and at that point, she's full on in enchantment mode, right? It's basically just, okay, it's just sitting here providing this. And that's honestly the kind of ability you would see on an enchantment. You could easily see them making an enchantment that says, whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. And this card actually made me think of some really old green enchantments specifically that feel similar. They have nothing to do with Death Touch, but just a limited number of uses, +1/+1 counters and things like that. Basically, an enchantment that diminishes over time. And that's how these planeswalkers feel to me. They feel like an enchantment that you can activate a few times and then you're going to lose it. So I'm going to show you a card that's going to blow your mind in how awful it is. And this is the kind of card I thought of when I first saw Braska and was thinking about these planeswalkers as being like enchantment style. What I'm going to show you is called a Fire Grove. Now, this is from Mirage, and it's rare. Bear that in mind. This is rare. 1 green, 1 colorless enchantment. It comes into play with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, which is so weird. This is old school, right? So you could have an enchantment with +1/+1 counters on it. Doesn't mean anything because the enchantment's not like alive, it can't attack. And then during your upkeep, put 1 of these counters on target creature. If a Fire Grove has none of these counters on it, bury it. And what that means is sacrifice it. Under new wording, that's sacrifice it. Burying just means it would go away and couldn't be regenerated. That's really old school Magic lingo. But anyways, you look at this card and it's very similar in the you can do it a few times and then it's gone. The same kind of feeling that you get with things like History of Benalia, where you make a night token, boost the tokens, and then it's gone. So it's like an enchantment that offers you a few things and then is gone in the wind. And that's how these planeswalkers that reduce loyalty feel. They have the, speaking of terrible green enchantments, there's something in a similar vein. It's called Cocoon. It's from Legends. I remember playing with this card. It's so awful. It's so bad what they used to give us back then. 1 green, when it enters the battlefield, it's an enchant creature. You tap the enchanted creature and you put 3 Cocoon counters on it. The creature doesn't untap as long as Cocoon has these Cocoon counters, I should say. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove 1 of these Cocoon counters from Cocoon. And if you can't, you sacrifice the enchantment and you put a +1/+1 counter on the enchanted creature. So basically, it's just this ridiculous like countdown where after you've waited 3 turns, then Cocoon goes away and you get a +1/+1 counter and the creature gains flying. So flavorfully, it's a fantastic card. The whole idea of like, look at me, I'm a beautiful butterfly, that kind of thing. But overall, it's just a garbage enchantment. Now, obviously, Vraska Swarm's Eminence is far better than a Fire Grove or Cocoon. Honestly, it's something more akin to like a Sap Rolling Burst. Sap Rolling Burst is an all-right enchantment. It's not garbage like the other ones we talked about, and it decreases as you go as well. It's a 5 casting cost enchantment that has fading 7, and how fading works, for those of you who don't know, is each upkeep you have to remove a card, remove a counter off of these cards that have fading. So it would start out with 7, go down to 6, go down to 5, but you can also spend the fade counters to put green Sapperling tokens onto the battlefield, and their power and toughness are each equal to the number of fade counters on Sap Rolling Burst. And Sap Rolling Burst is weird in that it just keeps decreasing. You go ahead and remove the fade counters, and then it just poof goes away as well. So this is one that generates creatures, but unlike Vraska's Eminence, when Sap Rolling Burst finally disappears, you lose all the tokens made with it. So Vraska's Eminence is a lot better. I mean, when you combine it with things that will boost loyalty, you can get more out of it. But genuinely, to me, these uncommon planeswalkers feel like they're almost not planeswalkers. Obviously, they obey the planeswalker rules, but I look at them more as enchantments that can be directly attacked. I don't know if you guys get the same vibe. Maybe it's just because I'm really old school and I remember these old, weird kind of decreasing enchantments and things like that. But to me, this is definitely a case where Vraska Swarm Eminence feels like it's just an enchantment card. And in all honesty, I think this is kind of the route they had to go with it. I couldn't see any other route because otherwise, I mean, if they made uncommon planeswalkers as strong as full-on like mythic level planeswalkers, we would have a format completely overrun with planeswalkers. Now, admittedly, we're going to see a format with a ton of planeswalker action going on, but this would take it to untenable levels where that's all we would see. So I personally think that these pseudo enchantment walkers are very interesting without being overpowered. If they're all going to be along the lines of Braska, I'm completely on board with this. So let me know what you guys think. Do they feel like enchantments to you? Is that just a me thing because I'm old man magic? What do you guys think about these uncommon planeswalkers? Let me know. We're gonna roll the golden scroll. These are the people who have my back on Patreon or through channel memberships. Thanks very much for supporting my channel, and I shall see all of you tomorrow.